So we left Turkey, and our heads are spinning. We're really excited, and we get on our ship. And that's the great thing about cruising the Mediterranean is it's the most efficient time and economically speaking way to see the Mediterranean, get around. So we get on the ship in Kushadasi, Turkey, and sail down to Haifa, North Israel. The next morning we got up. Like I said, Israel is... which one of these has the beam on it?
Actually, you can use this other beam. It's a lot better.
This one?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. So this is where we poured it in. Turkey's all the way up here in the ceiling. We poured it in here, and it was a 2-hour drive to our first stop over on the north side of the Sea of Galilee. And that's where Capernaum, Church of the Multiplication, Church of Beatitudes is located, right here. The Sea of Galilee is, I'll tell you more about it later, but it's basically 6 Hillsdale lakes put together. It's a gigantic lake. I'll tell you about that later. Yeah. Sermon on the Mount. Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain. And when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And opening his mouth, he began teaching them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This was a major part of the Sermon on the Mount. You may also recognize the Lord's Prayer, a tradition we have every Sunday here at the church. That was part of the Sermon on the Mount. That sermon occurred here. This was from the back of the Church of the Beatitudes looking into the Sea of Galilee. It's a beautiful area and very satisfyingly undeveloped because of its location to Syria and Lebanon and the Golan Heights. It probably looks a lot like it did 2,000 years ago. It's not really highly developed at all. So that was pretty satisfying for me personally. Off to the west of the Church of the Multiplication is a cleft in the hill. And you can just imagine Christ speaking there because the acoustics would be just great, like a small amphitheater. But you can just picture it. And there's not, like I said, it's a small country, small area. There's not many places he could have gone or this would have occurred. So that was pretty neat. This is the Church of the Beatitudes, and all I want to say about all of the beautiful architecture is we worship God through music, through song, and we also worship God through art and architecture. Imagine what was going on in the mind of this architect as he worshiped God through designing this, and then shared the inspiration with everybody else, like myself and a photographer who goes in and appreciates it, and we worship God through architecture. And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." They said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them to sit down in groups of hundreds and fifties. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing, and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to divide. And he divided the 2 fish among them all, and they all ate and were satisfied. This event is, by archaeology and tradition, said to have occurred at the location of the Basilica of the Multiplication. This is simply down the hill a little bit, walking distance from the Church of the Beatitudes. As is the archaeological site of Capernaum that we're going to go to next. All really co-located in a short walk. And I wish we would have walked instead of taking the buses. This is the inside of the Church of the Multiplication. And again, what we saw in all of the churches and the significant sites that we visited were the beautiful mosaic floors built on the second iteration of the churches. What happened was most of these commemorative churches were built in around 300 AD. Then the Persians came through, the Egyptians came through, and they were destroyed and rebuilt. And so what you saw a lot were newer mosaics built around 1000 AD, and then a foot down they said they would show, oh, this was the original floor from 300 AD. And again, the cool thing about this site, you'll see it a lot, this is a rock underneath the altar where tradition says the multiplication occurred. Like I said, remember what I said about those evening storytelling times? 3 generations later, this is where that occurred. Let's build a church here to commemorate this location. And so, quite possibly, this is the rock where that event occurred. And I put in this one photo of the window, which is really a thinly sliced quartz rock. I just thought that was cool for a window. When Jesus entered Peter's house, he saw his mother-in-law laying sick with a fever. He touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she rose and began to serve him. So we took the bus ride from the Church of the Multiplication and went to Capernaum, this large archaeological site. And when we walked in there, you know, Peter's a big deal to us, okay? And so not only was it this small, innocuous sign in English nailed to a tree, right? And they just looked, we're going to Peter's house. There's this little sign here, you know? And so I thought that was just kind of funny. This is Peter's house, not far from the north end of the Sea of Galilee. You can just imagine, as I described earlier, the late nights with the oil lamps and the stars and the Sea of Galilee, and Christ is there talking with Peter. You could just picture it because, like I said, it's not developed. Originally, a Byzantine church was built on this location. Then the archaeologists said, hey, we need to get in there, see what's going on. And they found a lot of manuscript evidence. This, along with the Church of the Nativity, in my opinion, is one of the most archaeologically correct locations where I'm pretty sure these events did occur in this location. The Catholic Church built this really cool structure over the top of Peter's house, a modern structure. And so you can go in and look through this glass floor into that house and imagine Peter and Christ and the lives that went on there, not far from the shore of the Sea of Galilee. It's really pretty neat. And another neat thing was right across the street was a synagogue. And I mean right across the street, like from here to that blue house right there, was the synagogue. This dark foundation here, archaeologists confirmed from the time of Christ, 2,000 years ago, this was the building where he began his ministry. Now, as I said, lots of wars going on, earthquakes. I don't know, I'm not familiar with what destroyed this original synagogue, but a subsequent synagogue was built, and that's what these pillars are from, not from 2,000 years ago, but the foundation is, and that's confirmed. So, really neat archaeological site down in Capernaum.
Were you guys just overwhelmed with emotion everywhere you went?
Oh, yeah.
You're on, you know when you get in those times in your life and you just turn the video camera on and you're just like, all day long. We were so tired when we got to the ship because we were so focused in everywhere we went. So let me set this one up. We leave Capernaum. We get into the bus, and we're on the north side of the Sea of Galilee, and our tour guide, Isaac, is a big jokester. He talked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, you need to come to Israel more. It's safer. And he's trying to prepare us for the River Jordan. Now, you guys know The River Jordan's not like the Mississippi. It's just a small little creek. Don't get too excited. The River Jordan, it's really small. So we came to this little bridge, smaller than the one over here. And, all right, there it is. Oh, that was it. Right? And we're like, oh, River Jordan, it's a little creek. And then he's a jokester. And he says, okay, now we're in Syria. We've just crossed the Syrian border. And so there was a lot going on in Syria at that time. And so we were looking at each other. Ooh. And it was the old Syrian border before Israel had taken the Golan Heights. But he got us, and he was happy about it. So we headed down the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee. And this is where we started to notice all the campers, all the jet skiers, all the boats, just like you would see out here in Hillsdale. All right, and as I said, 6 Hillsdale lakes would fit into the Sea of Galilee. That's how big it is. So we're driving down in the bus on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, and we came to this spot where the River Jordan empties out of the Sea of Galilee. And it was a lot bigger, as you'll see, once it exits the sea. One of my favorite passages in the Bible when Christ is baptized, in those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And when he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens open and the Spirit descending upon him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "Thou art my Son, with whom I am well pleased." Now, this is not an archaeologically correct site. It is a site chosen by churches, which was convenient and a great place to continue to do baptisms today. But it is not the place where Christ was baptized. I'm not sure if they know exactly where that is. But it is on the River Jordan. This is a really neat picture of the River Jordan. It's a healthy river full of fish, very lush. This location was anyway. And Kat and I got to go down there and put our feet in. The only bad part is, for me, not only was it not archaeologically correct, but after you exited, you had to go through this Disney World-like souvenir shop where they encourage you to get a little bottle for bottled water of the Jordan River to take home with you. And so that kind of took away from it, but that's part of it. But a great experience at the Jordan River. And I know it was for Kat because her aunt had been there earlier.
So this is my great aunt Mert, and when I was 12 years old, both she and Aunt Sina, my great Aunt Sina, went to the Holy Land, and this was back 35 years ago. They went by themselves, and they went close to the spot where Christ was baptized, and there were preachers there, pastors that were baptizing a bunch, and so they both were baptized. And I had asked my mom last week, "Do you think you have a picture?" And I already had this picture of the beehive hairdo of my great Aunt Myrtle, and then she found a picture of her being baptized in the Jordan River. So about 35 years later.
So we left the River Jordan and drove up the west side of the Sea of Galilee to Nazareth. And I'd completely forgotten about this stop, but was so happy and surprised with the location, the Basilica of the Annunciation, the place, the grotto where Gabriel met with Mary and told her about her being with child. Again, tradition and word of mouth. Nazareth wasn't a big place 2,000 years ago. So as they told these stories by oil lamp light late at night, "Hey, do you remember that story about Jesus? Yeah, and Mary, the angel Gabriel, yeah, that was in the cave over there." And that got passed down 2-3 generations until 300 AD. They built a church to commemorate this location. This location suffered a lot of damage during all of the wars, Persians, Egyptians passing through earthquakes. But the architects, you see this modern facade here, again, the mind of that architect worshiping God through this creation of space and beauty and art, not only worshiping God in song, but in these beautiful works of art and architecture. It was just really neat and overwhelming. And I know that's not what it's all about. These are expensive. There are poor people who need to be fed and clothed. But I think when architects inspire like this, there's a domino effect where those things that need to be cared for are cared for by people like Kat and I who were inspired by being there in the space. This is the beautiful interior of the Basilica of the Annunciation, the sanctuary. And you can see that railing area there that looks down on where the grotto area is. Again, there were like 4 or 5 different iterations of this church, and the newest iteration really blended well with the older areas. This is the grotto where Gabriel met with Mary. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. So now when I read these passages in the Bible, we were there, and I believe this was the location because of tradition. Maybe not archaeologically correct or archaeologically confirmed, but my logic tells me Nazareth was not a big place then. And through tradition and word of mouth, at least by 300 AD, it's pretty correct. So that was neat. That was neat.